Did your small business receive an economic injury disaster loan from the Small Business Administration during the pandemic? If it did, then this video today is for you. I'm Trevor, the EIDL expert, and today I'm going to share with you some horror stories. No, not from this 100-year-old book from my library. No, I'm going to share with you some recent horror stories of small business owners essentially being accused of having committed fraud by the SBA. Before we get started, if you would not mind taking a quick 3 seconds, hit that thumbs up button and like the video. Tell YouTube that our videos have value to you so that YouTube will get the message from you, because that's the message, and they will share our videos with other small business owners with COVID EIDLs just like you. Folks who need our advice, folks who, like you, cannot find straight answers from the Small Business Administration. You can't even get someone on the phone now, and cannot find accurate videos from folks here on YouTube because last time I checked, which literally was last night, there's nobody doing what we're doing here on YouTube with the EIDL. If any of you know of people who are doing those, please share those channels in the comments. I'd love to have a look at them. But on my survey, I'm not seeing anybody posting videos anymore about this program. So we're going to continue doing that. And the price we ask you to pay is to hit that thumbs up. And better yet, more than 7 out of 10 are not subscribed to this channel, and yet they're participating. They're here at the dining room table eating my lasagna, which, by the way, I'll tell you, my lasagna is pretty dang good. Please hit that subscribe button. If you need assistance with your COVID EIDL and you want to participate and get the benefit of my expertise and knowledge, both in our guidebooks and 1-hour calls and other information we have, there's a link in the description that will tell you what else we can offer to help you. In today's Horror Stories Part 1, I wanted to share with you the stories of 2 recent phone calls I had with small business owners who booked a 1-hour call and asked me for their help. They had run out of ideas and run out of options in dealing with the Small Business Administration. And in both cases, due to what's called a post-funding compliance review, which is essentially the SBA's complicated way of saying an audit. You know, the IRS, you know what they call it? They call it an audit. You know what a CPA calls it? An audit. Do you know what the SBA calls it? Post-funding compliance review. Which, by the way, you cannot find information about this review process anywhere on the SBA.gov website. It's an obscure process that comes out of nowhere, just like in the horror stories of old, how the demon appears out of nowhere. In both instances, the SBA essentially accused these 2 business owners in roundabout, indirect, oblique terms of having committed fraud. In the first instance, an accountant who got 2 COVID EIDLs for 2 businesses in the early days of the pandemic, this person had applied for and been approved for an SBA $100,000 express loan through an SBA approved lender. As part of that approval, that triggered a post-funding compliance review and audit. And the SBA contacted him and said to him that he lied on the original COVID application by overstating his 2019 revenue. Now, for those of you who remember those crazy, insane days of the pandemic when SBA was asking you to provide accurate numbers for revenue that you probably didn't even calculate yet. You know, March, April 2020, that's tax time. And the SBA was asking people to put in the gross revenue for the 12-month period prior to the start of the disaster. Try to figure out that sentence, by the way, because I had to figure that out. That meant the 12 months between February 1st, 2019 and January 31st, 2020, because January 31st, 2020 is when the pandemic disaster officially was declared for COVID. Many folks, March, April, May 2020, had not even calculated their revenue or expenses yet for the previous tax year because everything was upside down. It was tax time. They didn't have final numbers. But this person who the SBA accused of overstating, lying about their income, overstating their revenue. This person is an accountant. And on the phone call, it took me 12 seconds to figure out there is no way that this person made that kind of deliberate error, never mind an honest mistake. Because the one business that he applied for in the early days of the pandemic had only opened in May of 2019 and only had one client in that entire 7-month period between May and December of 2019. And the total revenue was $15,500. Now, he did not have his tax return in front of him when he was on the phone with me, and was basically kind of, because the SBA had freaked him out so much by accusing him of fraud, he was so nervous and so anxious. He's like, Trevor, maybe I made a mistake. I said, listen, it took me 12 seconds to figure this out. I asked you one simple question, and you answered it like that. You knew what your revenue was. I've spoken to thousands of small business owners. I speak to folks all the time who some of them have no clue what their revenue is. Some can only give me a rough estimate. Okay, Trevor, I don't know what it was exactly. My account's still working on it. I think it was $3.4 million last year. Don't hold me to that. It might have been less. It might have been more. But this accountant only had one client who he only billed and only paid $15,500. In fact, that client is the person that referred him to us in the first place for the 1-hour call. And here we are in 2025 when he has been making his payments on time, has never requested hardship accommodation or any other accommodation or relief or any other problem with the SBA in the last 5 years. And I remind you, for commercial lending purposes, the look-back period is only 3. For audit purposes, the IRS can audit you going back 7 years. But an audit with the IRS is, it appears, a very different creature than what we're talking about here. Not least of which is because the folks who do the audits of the IRS actually know what they're doing. This small business owner, needing $100,000 to keep his business thriving, paying his COVID loans on time, honoring the terms of the loan agreement, maintaining compliance, through no fault of his own, gets accused of overstating his income on the original application and therefore essentially having committed fraud, because it is fraudulent. It is a criminal act to lie on a federal loan application, like the COVID loan application. But here's the kicker. And I brought this up on the call with this accountant. It turns out that he applied for an increase for the loan, and the SBA approved him for an increase. If you remember, when you requested the increase modification, the SBA required your tax transcripts from the IRS. That means the SBA, who is now in 2025, 5 years later, accusing this business owner of lying, of committing fraud, of deliberately overstating his income on his original COVID application. That means that somewhere along the line, the SBA doesn't know what it's doing, because in the following year, he got an increase modification and the SBA approved him for it using the 2019 tax transcript. If he had overstated his income on the original application, when the SBA loan officer worked on the increase, they would have seen that he had overstated his income and they would have denied his request. Do you know why I know that's what would have happened? Because we spoke to thousands of small business owners during the pandemic, 500 of whom hired us, and I've seen situations where people made a mistake on their original COVID application. I won't accuse them of having lied. I spoke to them on the phone. I've seen their documents. I will say they rushed through the application and they made a mistake. Also, going back to what I said earlier, a lot of folks hadn't calculated their 2019 income yet. And I've spoken to those people who told me, Trevor, I requested an increase and they denied me because they said I'd already gotten too much money in the first place because I made a mistake on the original COVID application. So here we are in 2025, and some idiot at the SBA is accusing an honest, hardworking accountant of having lied on a COVID application. Does that not sound like a horror show, a horror story to you? because that's a horror story to me. That's why we just created our Fight Back guidebook, because we needed to come up with answers for people like this and for the next business owner I'm going to tell you about, who have run out of ideas and options on how to move forward when the SBA arbitrarily bars them for life from participating in SBA programs due to this funding review and some clerk who can't spell the word business, never mind actually read financial documents. I don't work for the SBA, and I know that if the SBA approved this person for an increase using a tax transcript, then they had to have seen the 2019 income. And at that point, they could have said, you got too much money already. They could have accused him of having overstated his income there if they wanted to do it. They didn't. They gave him the loan. The SBA dysfunction is the real horror story here. This is what you all are facing day in and day out with the simplest of transactions, like trying to change an email address because the person who applied for the loan originally is no longer with your organization and you don't have access to their email. So you try to change out the email with the SBA. Good luck. It's a nightmare. I know, because I've done it. It takes months. And meanwhile, SBA wants you all to work through email. They don't even have people answering the phone right now. Is this sounding like a Stephen King horror novel? Because it is. Next story is a person who is a real estate, who is an entrepreneur. He owns interests in multiple businesses, one of which is a business that invests in and develops real estate. This business was not eligible for the COVID EIDL program. In fact, it stated that on the application. Somehow, somewhere, he missed that and has submitted his application. He was subsequently contacted by an SBA loan officer during the pandemic who said, I'm sorry, but you're not eligible for this business. We don't lend disaster loans to this type of business. So I'm going to cancel your application. And the business owner said, he said, I realized that after the fact, shortly thereafter, as he did more research, and he knew that this was probably going to happen. And so the file was canceled. He was never approved. He didn't receive any money. And now in 2025, for that business, similar to the accountant earlier, this business owner went to a lender, applied for a loan, and as lenders pretty much always do because they are cowards and they don't want to lend their own money without somebody standing over their shoulder grabbing the brunt of the risk. That's you, the American taxpayer, by the way, through the SBA. The lenders don't lend their own money without the government standing behind them and absorbing up to 90%, maybe more, of the risk of that loan in case of default. This is the state of commercial lending for small business owners, okay? And people wonder why people have to go to high-cost, criminal, unethical, almost illegal type of lending. You know what I'm talking about, merchant cash advances and so forth. But back to our entrepreneur. He needed money for this business that invests and develops real estate, and he got approved through an SBA-approved lender for a loan to develop property. That would have included a mortgage on that property, right? That type of SBA loan. But that loan application, that approval, similar to the accountant earlier, triggered a post-funding compliance review or an audit. And in a subsequent conversation, the SBA representative said to him, you are permanently barred from participating in all SBA programs as a result of our findings on the review. To which he responded, yes, but I never got the loan. Yes, but you applied for it and you shouldn't have applied. He goes, yes, but I never got the loan. He goes, I don't know the rules of lending. I missed that statement in the application, obviously, but your loan officer called me and corrected it and never gave me the money. And the loan officer canceled the loan application, stating on the phone to me back in those days. In fact, I believe this business owner has this in writing in an email from the loan officer. Application canceled. Ineligible. And here we are 5 years later, and the compliance review, the SBA representative says, yes, I hear you. I understand that you didn't get the loan. It doesn't matter. There's nothing I can do. We have other horror stories to share with you in upcoming videos. If you found this video helpful in any way, please tell YouTube that it has value and hit that thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. If you want to know how we can help you with your struggles with small business administration, of which there are many struggles that you're all having, click on the link in the description and you'll find what services and products we have to help you. The horror show just keeps on going. More videos about this coming up. If you are one of these business owners, like the accountant, like the entrepreneur in this video, and you have run into similar challenges where the SBA has arbitrarily prohibited you from participating due to a post-funding compliance review, consider purchasing our Fight Back Guidebook, which is the best ideas we can come up with for you to try to appeal or force the SBA to at least reveal the findings and help you try to overcome this harm caused on your personal and professional reputations. I'm Trevor, the EIDL expert. Thank you for tuning in today.